Kid Shardy Gaming Nation in the building. As the title of the video says, should black men view, or why should black men view the Democrats, the liberals, the left, and feminism as a threat to their masculinity and their manhood, right? And I have some articles that I can read from on my PC. Unfortunately, I can't stream it from my PC. This is an old PC right here, but I posted the links in the description box, right? The Democrats, let's begin with the Democratic Party, right? The Democratic Party have been an enemy to black men and black masculinity since slavery, or since slavery was ended, right? Or during the Reconstruction era. A lot of people don't know that during the Jim Crow South, a lot of those states that passed a lot of those racist laws was by Democrats. Was by the Democrats. You feel me? The people that were fighting to put black folks back into slavery were Democrats. Especially when it came to black men. Black men have to understand, and understand is that when America from the Democratic Party was attacking the black community, they were really attacking black men because it was a patriarchal thing, man versus man thing, right? And, you know, they just enslaved these people for 300 years. And then now they're going to have the power to, you know, rebuild themselves and, you know, get in patriarchal power. Their biggest fear is probably revenge. And then now their biggest fear is now getting conquered, or the biggest fear is now, what I noticed, right, when I look into black history, right, what I've noticed, especially in the black American space, what I've noticed is that there are a lot of newspaper articles printed out about how, you know, black men are going to, if you touch one of them, they're going to give you some type of disease, or not to let them mess with their daughters. And they built us as like rapists and these creatures and these demonic figures, dark figures. It's how a lot of the propaganda from the Democrats was towards black men, right? So the Democratic Party has been a threat to black men and black masculinity for a long time, right? So, you know, during this, what's going on, music? Sit tight, like the channel, subscribe, share, tell people about it. As the title shows, should black men, or why should black men view the Democratic Party as a threat? You know, and various other groups, leftist groups, liberal groups in America. I think that black men should view them as a threat towards them. And I'm going to go into why, right? Beginning with the Democratic Party. Thank you, guys. So the Democratic Party, and the reason why it prompted me to look into this thing is how the Democrats, the liberals, and the left has been behaving this year towards black men. How the programming from the Democrats have programmed our women to rebel against our house. All right? This is why. Like, look at all the shaming tactics. I know that, writer. This is why I'm having this video. I'm trying to get black men in a circle. And we need to sit down and review the enemies that has been against us, whether it be in the diaspora or in black America, that has been a thorn in our sides for however how long. Whether it be feminism, liberalism, I don't care. Feminism is for white women. And feminism was used, white women whispering to our women, talking bad about us. If it was other men, it'd be called dirty macking. But white women whispering to our women, the serpent in the garden, whispering to Eve, to rebel against my house. So we have to talk about it, right? So, because this whole year in the Democratic Party, I've heard white feminists say some crazy things about black men, like with 50 Cent and Chancey Handler. That's because 50 Cent, as a free person in the country, we're not slaves. He has a right to put his vote where he want to put it. And you had Chelsea, what's her Chelsea Handler, I guess one of his exes, come out and tell 50 basically like you have no right to vote for who you want to vote for. Even on these news outlets like NBC or whatever, whenever you have a black person, black male up there, and he's giving his honest thoughts and opinions, there's always some liberal telling him what he can and cannot think about, what he can and cannot say, and how he should think. Like, black men are nobody's slaves. But let's get into it, right? The Democrat, a lot of people don't know that because a lot of arguments is about, black people shouldn't vote for Republican because Donald Trump, he's the guy with the short mustache or whatever, right? But the thing is, black folks shouldn't be voting Democrat. If your feeling is that the Republican Party is racist, so is the Democratic Party. At least with the Republican Party was anti-slave party. That's what it was beginning, right? And it was the Republican Party was to protect you from the Southern Democrats. So the Democrats during that 100-year from 1877 to 1960s, they gave you Jim Crow. They gave you Jim Crow during the South, during the Southern Democrats, that Southern belt they talk about. They gave you Jim Crow. White bathroom, black bathroom, and crap like that. You see what I'm saying? Burn down your cities and your thriving black communities. Burn those down and take those from you. That was all done by the Democrats. And we're going to go into it, right? So I'm going to read something here. And I posted this link into the description. It's called ammo.com, AMMO.com. /article/Jim Crow laws, Democratic Party century of a racist history, right? We're going to go into it. In the last presidential election, Donald Trump was lauded for his performance amongst black voters. He scored 4% of female black voters and a whopping 13% of black male voters, the highest since Richard Nixon. This isn't a shock. Black voters have voted en masse for the Democratic Party since the mid-60s and the passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and the social welfare programs of the Great Society. This solidified black voters behind the Democratic Party, but they had been moving there since the New Deal, right? Remember, Lyndon B. Johnson said that if I give these Negroes this, which is basically the welfare state, if I give Negroes this, they'll be voting Democrat for the next 100 years, which black men or the black community has broken that spell, that curse, thank God, all right? Let's break that down, right? This is how white men stuck their nose into black folks' business, especially the black man's business, right? Lyndon B. Johnson, remember, these are Democrats. He passed, what's going on? Respect my channel, respect my house, talk about the subject. You know what I'm saying? I will block you if you're being disrespectful. All right, respect my channel like you respect everybody's channel here on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and share out the content. All right, I gotta teach y'all about masculinity and manhood. When I go into other people's shows and YouTube channels, I respect their platform. I speak about the topic they want to speak about. I don't disrespect them. You know what I'm saying? But right. So the Democratic Party, right? Let's dissect Lyndon B. Johnson's welfare state. All right. Let me see. Let me look this up. I think it's called the Welfare Programs of Great Society, right? Now, let's dissect that. That program pushed towards black folks in low-income housing. That welfare program says you cannot have a man in the house. You cannot have a patriarchal man in the house. If you have a patriarchal man in the house, we will not give you any free program or money. Think about that, black folks. When you watch this later on, think about that. They're willing to give. Remember, this is the same Democratic Party that installed racist Jim Crow laws on you for 100 years. This is from 1877. When you look back at the 1877 compromise towards the 1960s. These are the Democrats, the same Democrats that want to put you back in slavery, wanted to pass those racist laws, right? Yeah, Big Trump, 2024, you damn right. Wanted to pass those racist laws against the black community, now giving you free handouts. I think one of the 48 laws of power says be careful of the free lunch, right? Now, let's dissect that. Instead of the Democrats saying, okay, to repair what happened to you guys, because remember, black community, a lot of thriving black communities in the Jim Crow South got destroyed by the Democratic Party. That's a big economic base that black folks would have had if the Democrats didn't fuck with them or bother them, right? So instead of the Democrats saying, okay, we're going to give welfare programs to help black families with a black man in the household, we build from what they lost during Jim Crow and during slavery, during the Reconstruction era. We're going to give them welfare to black families with a black man ahead of the household. But they didn't. Instead, they said that you couldn't have a patriarchal black man at the head of your household to get this welfare check. So what did that cause? Black women chose to abandon their men for something free that the government, the Democrats, black men's mortal enemy was given to his woman, and she took it. Remember, when black women were following black men, they were thriving black communities. When she was under his house and his structure and under his patriarchy, right? And I think that at that point, with the welfare state, that's when the black community changed from going into the direction of a patriarchal thing to a more matriarchal thing. Because now, which really wasn't a matriarchy, it was black women choosing a white male patriarchy over a black patriarchy. Think about that, right? Because before the welfare state, black women followed their black men. You can't tell me that black men during the 1920s, the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s, and the 60s was broke and struggling because you had thriving black communities, even during Jim Crow, right? And you have black men that were moving up to the north, and they would get making their money, right? Education rate was high, marriage rate was high, so you can't tell me that black men during this time wasn't doing nothing or they wasn't making their bones. They was making their money. They was doing good. Go look up the stats. He had thriving black communities. Remember that. Started by black men. What's going on, Lulu? Right? So, what's going on? Going to the thing right here. So, what happened? The Democratic Party, what they did with the free welfare state to the black community, it was actually a weapon against black men. Because now it pushed black women away from our house and they went up under the white male structure. And what black women did is that instead of them getting with a black man that's about his business, they decided to get with a low tier, low level black male. Get pregnant by those black males, low level black dudes, and then have babies so they could get free money from the government, which is the welfare state, right? Right? That right there, hold on. Let me gather my thoughts real quick. That right there is how I believe that the Democrats, low-key, became a threat to black men. Now, at this time, you do have the civil rights movement and all these other things. Even when you break down the civil rights movement, before the civil rights movement, the black community was thriving without the civil rights movement. They had their own communities, again, thriving communities, all their towns. They had a monetary base where they made their own money. They didn't need white folks' money. Only thing that black folks or black men were fighting for was equal rights under the law. Meaning, if this white person comes here and punch me in my face, I should be able to defend myself and punch him back in the face, or pick up arms to defend myself if he's attacking me, without there being some racist judge that's going to go in his favor. That's what the fight should have been about. But what happened with civil rights now, because everything has to be integrated, black folks, instead of still sticking to their own, now have to hire white folks into their stuff, bring white people into their business. And then a lot of black folks left their business and went to go into white folks' business. because of that Civil Rights Act. You feel me? And a lot of those black businesses that even Martin Luther King would admit that he lets people into a burning building. That's what that meant. Is that a lot of black businesses that were black owned, black colleges and these things, because of integration, they no longer existed because black folks, and that's the problem with black folks right there, right? Because at least with white people and Italians, even though they're integrated, they still support one another. For some odd reason, during the Civil Rights Act, black folks decided, okay, cool, we're gonna now go away from, even though we want integration, we can still have our own stuff, still have our own community, still have our own businesses, and still be able to work with the other people. But that's not what black folks did. Black folks left their shit to go integrate with white folks shit. It's craziness, right? But nonetheless, that's how Lyndon Baines Johnson's welfare thing became a big thorn or monkey wrench into the side of the black community, because now that promoted a lot of black women to not find a husband, not find a patriarchal husband, but go towards the democratic patriarchal thing. And right after that now, which I'm going to go into that later, but let me read this, what the Democrats during Jim Crow South did, right? This is called ammo.com, Articles of Jim Crow. I'll put that description put the link into my description box, right? What do we mean when we say Jim Crow? Before delving further into the topic, it is important to define precisely what we mean by Jim Crow and why it is a distinct form of legal codes in United States history. While northern and western cities were by no means integrated, this integration was de facto, not de jure. In many cases, the discrimination in the North was discrimination of custom and preference, discrimination that could not be removed without highly intrusive government action, ensuring equality of outcome. Northerners and Westerners were not required to discriminate, but nor were they forbidden from doing so. So that means that in the North, like New York, and I guess in the West, like Western parts, that it is more like you could call that classism, custom and preference. You could say, and then they're saying that you couldn't remove that, and then but even so, like with that, right? Like from my experience in New York City, you still have, like, back into the 90s and growing up in the 2000s, right? You still had Italian communities that didn't like niggas or black folks. They didn't like black folks or messing with their daughters, even with Spanish people, like with the Puerto Ricans and the Dominicans. They didn't fuck with didn't like black men like that, right? But they didn't. And then in New York, the discrimination is low key. Like, for instance, I could be going to go work for a juice bar that's ran by maybe some Mexicans, right? Now they'll interview me out of saying something, block your bum ass. Why you come over here then? Block you. Move. If you don't like the channel, scroll your punk ass on. Don't walk up into my chat with that bullshit. Anyway, so as I was saying, you can be a black dude and say you go for an interview at an Asian restaurant or some Chinese restaurant, right? Now, mind you, they have to interview black folks. It's a part of their affirmative action quota. Now, in their mind, they could say, I'm not going to hire this Negro. I'm going to hire me some Asian people. Let's interview enough black folks to say that I give black folks a shot. That's how the discrimination can be low key in New York. See what I'm saying? But let's continue to read. Compare this to the series of laws in the American South, known for mandating segregation at everything from public schools to water fountains. No one is entirely sure where the term Jim Crow came from, but it's suspected that it comes from an old minstrel show, song, and dance routine called Jump Jim Crow. Curiously, the first political application of the term Jim Crow was applied to the white populist supporters of President Andrew Jackson. This history of Jim Crow phenom we are discussing here goes back to the end of the Reconstruction in the United States. The Reconstruction era. Briefly, Reconstruction was the means by which the federal government asserted control over the southern states that previously succeeded to the form of Confederate States of America. This involved military occupation and disenfranchisement of the bulk of the white population of the states. The result of the Reconstruction era were mixed. Ultimately, Reconstruction ended as part of the bargain to put President Rutherford B. Hayes into the White House after the 1876 election. The lasting result of the Reconstruction era, best enumerated for our purpose as the Reconstruction Amendments. Now, that's referring to the 1877 Compromise. This is where the Republicans and the Democrats had a deal that if the Republicans remove federal troops from the South, that the Democrats will allow, President Rutherford B. Hayes to be in the White House. Now, this is the sin from the Republican parties because they made that deal and removed the troops from the South. It gave the Democrats carte blanche to go around and be terrorists, domestic terrorists towards black folks. This is by the Democrats. Destroying a lot of thriving black towns, enforcing racist policies against black folks like jaywalking, white-colored, a colored person looking at a black, it's like you a black man, you looked at a white woman back in them days, you know what I'm saying, you get hung or something bad happened to you. Shit like that. This is by the Democrats, by the way. But we still got to acknowledge that the Republicans, because you made that deal behind black folks' back, that's why that happened. So I get when black folks are saying that, the Republican Party is racist, but when black folks say that the Republican Party is racist, they don't know about the 1877 Compromise. I doubt they're going to refer to that for the most part. But I can understand why. Because the Republican Party, that is your biggest sin that has to be addressed. And I hope there's some black person smarter than me that is going to address on the Republican side that's going to address that and speak to Donald Trump about that. You know what I'm saying? Black men, just because you voted for the Republican Party, does not mean that now you shouldn't hold them accountable for certain things, especially that 1877 Compromise. That's a big stab wound to the black community. Hold on. Ooh. Why do people come to your thing? Why do people come to your damn chat just to talk shit? Like, damn. So let's go into it, right? The 13th Amendment abolished involuntary servitude for anyone other than criminals. It was once voted down and passed only through the extensive political maneuvering on the behalf of President Abraham Lincoln himself and the approval of dubious Reconstruction state governments in the South. It became law in December 1865. So now that's why they call the Republican Party the anti-slave party, because President Abraham Lincoln, he did a lot, and he put a lot of things in the Constitution to end what was going on in slavery. So even though the 1877 Compromise, where the Republicans made that deal with the Democrats, was a stab or blow to the black community's back, you still can't deny that the Republican Party's history or foundation was rooted in anti-slavery. Got to acknowledge that, right? The 14th Amendment includes a number of provisions often thought. So let's go to the 14th Amendment, right? The 14th Amendment includes a number of provisions often thought to be part of the Bill of Rights, such as the Equal Protection Clause and the Due Process Clause, which are in fact later innovations, birthright citizenships, advocate. Oh, let me read that properly. My bad. The 14th Amendment includes a number of provisions often thought to be part of the Bill of Rights, such as the Equal Protection Clause and the Due Process Clause, which are in fact later innovations. Birthright citizenship advocates the claim that the constitutional jurisdiction can be found in this sprawling amendment, which also includes amendments barring former Confederate officials from office and address Confederate war debts. This amendment became law in July 1868. The 15th Amendment prevents discrimination against voters on the basis of race, skin color, race, or skin color. This law was quickly circumvented by a number of laws discriminating against all voters on the basis of income, poll tax, or education, literacy tests, which is low key against black folks, because you know, a lot of black folks coming out of slavery didn't know, especially black men, didn't know how to read or write because they were literally just bred to be workhorses, bred to do trade skills and all that other stuff. But that's another story. Um, the Reconstruction Amendments were the first amendments to the Constitution passed in almost 60 years, and represented a significant expansion of federal power. Perhaps the most important thing to know about the Reconstruction Amendment is that they were legally ineffective. Ranking public officials of the Confederacy were elected to federal government. Blacks were disenfranchised as quickly as they were elected to the Senate. In Jim Crow, an entire system of legal discrimination was erected to return Black Americans to their subservient status, with the exception of citizenship for Blacks and an end to involuntary servitude. The substance of the rest of the amendments were legally largely discarded. Now, this is from the Democrats. Let me read that again. The Reconstruction Amendments were the first amendments to the Constitution passed in almost 60 years and represented a significant expansion of federal power. Perhaps the most important thing to know about the Reconstruction Amendment is that they were largely ineffective. Ranking public officials of the Confederacy were elected to federal government. That's fucked up. So now, if you have a federal law being passed, and now you have Confederate people elected to federal government, right? That's those guys could just overlook certain things that's happening in certain states ran by Democrats, right? Blacks were disenfranchised as quickly as they were elected to the Senate, and Jim Crow, an entire system of legal discrimination, legally. Democrats made it illegal. Legal, listen to that, legal discrimination. This is why I say the Democrats should be black men should view the Democrats as a threat to your masculinity and your community. And you should never vote for them again. That's why them 90% of black dudes that was listening to your mama and your black women telling y'all to vote for Democrat, y'all are the biggest suckers and punks. I said it. Because you allowed your woman to encourage you to vote for your fucking enemies. Yeah, because most Republicans understand that, well, the thing is, right, a lot of black men are conservative, but they vote Democrat. They vote Democrat because their women vote Democrat. And really and truly what the black community has to understand is that y'all are right. This has never been a matriarchy. You've been under a democratic patriarchy. So your black woman was encouraging you, black men, to vote for his enemy, another patriarchal system, instead of setting up your own patriarchy. That's what black women were doing. But no, most black men are conservative by nature. If we talk, we're conservative, but we somehow foolishly vote Democrat. The reason why we're conservatives is because we're black men. We got to work. In other words, we have to eat what we kill. We don't get handouts. Only niggas that get handouts are the niggas in low-income housing where they can get the baby mama pregnant and the baby mama go to welfare and she shares some of her welfare and her EBT with the nigga. That's the only niggas that get free shit. Out of the black community, shit. A black person of the black community become president? Shit. Like, I clap to the 20% of black men that voted Republican, but look at the numbers that voted Democrat. That still should tell you something about what black men's mentality is in the black community. Well, me, I don't think I'll be fit for president because I'd cuss a nigga out in politics. And in politics, you got to have certain level of intelligence and a certain level of finesse. I don't have that. You know what I'm saying? I can't sit across from a nigga I was just beefing with and just clap his hand like that. I can't do that shit. But we ain't gonna see. We not gonna see. I don't care nothing about none of that as long as you were in the country. Yeah, I'm in the country. Yeah, I know what you're saying. But first of all, before we could say as a black community, we could put somebody from our community, a man from our community as a president, we'd have to clean up the black culture. It has to be cleaned up. We got to clean up black culture and create operations after this one of black men and black women and make black men the center of the community as the patriarch in the community. You know what I'm saying? We have to go back to certain gentleman standards and certain things. Like for instance, black men need to know about the three branches of government, the history of this country and their history of this country. They need to be educated on a lot of things, and a lot of the nonsense that we're doing right now that has to be cleaned up. So I don't think black communities should worry about having a president in office. We should worry about fixing ourselves up first. Crooked? Nah. Nah. Let me say this. So Donald Trump set a precedent, right? We know all black folks are not the same. But did you not pay attention for the past couple of years? What has been the main forefront or the main influence on the culture? The sexy reds, the gorillas. I said gorilla or gorillas. That's just what's been the main thing pushing the culture. What's been pushing the culture, and I have watched educated black folks, intelligent black folks, follow the nonsense of the culture that's there. And what are we doing as a whole right now, brother? Tell me, what are we doing as a whole right now? Because what I see is twerking. What I see is intelligent black women fucking with dumb niggas. And intelligent black men fucking with dumb bitches. That's what I'm seeing. But I'm saying, I know the Democrats did it that way, but you're telling me that we as a whole, we're all different people. Right now, the intelligent people are afraid to speak because black culture says that intelligent people are lame. Niggas like me is a lame, even though I come from East New York, Brooklyn. The culture is saying that the intellectual blacks is lame, which is why I'm surprised why everybody likes Barack Obama. That Barack Obama, by all counts, according to black culture, is a lame. But they fuck with Barack Obama even though he's a lame. Tell me I'm lying. Yeah, but who do they prop up most in, right? They love the gangbanger. They love the thug. If they didn't love the thug, Little Dirk couldn't get up and talk about smoking Tuka and the rest of the world smoked Tuka. Talk about smoking Tuka. They'd have been listening to some people like I forgot the Republican brother. I forgot his name. They be talking about hitting them books. You know what I'm saying? Look at black culture right now. Look what's influencing black culture. That's what I'm saying. Like, black culture has such an impact on the intellectual people that I'm watching intellectual and intelligent people doing or following the line of black culture stuff. I'm watching black kids that come from good homes. Look at Jay Moore, that's an NBA black basketball player doing dumbass hood nigga shit. So when we have a culture that's influencing intelligent people that come from good homes to do dumb stuff, that's something we got to look at. So I get it that black folks is not a monolith. I get it. I know that's why it's on the other side, but the ghetto is influencing intelligent people to be ghetto. That's what I'm trying to tell you. The ghetto people on the other side of town are influencing the intelligent blacks to do ghetto stuff. This is why you can have a black woman working at an intellectual in corporate America still getting to the relationship with a Pookie and Ray Ray. Because the culture says the intelligent black man on her level is a lame or a square. That's what I'm trying to tell you. This is why the intellectual black male will lower himself down and then a Pukisha and get a Pukisha pregnant. Even though he got 10 black women that are certified or qualified to be with him, he'll go down there and date a Pukisha because that's what the culture say. Y'all making excuses. There are plenty of brothers out here that are so now here you go. So I'm gonna make an argument to your point. There are plenty of black men out here that are blue collared, not thugging and gang banging, about their business. Why she didn't pick one of them niggas? Why she picked the Pookie and Ray Ray? Because in black culture, as soon as you say lame or brand somebody sucker or you are lame or you a trick, automatically what runs through your mind, this nigga is not to be respected, or his value of masculinity goes down. So those women don't look towards those dudes. They look for Pookie and Ray Ray. And that's what the culture dictates. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how culture, black culture, which ghetto shit is influencing the culture, which is influencing everybody else. Reason why it called me, even though I come from that, is because I broke that spell. Most black folks haven't broke that spell. It should let you know that with the people that voted during this election, over 90% of black women voted Democrat. And I think a large percentage of black men voted Democrat too. My nigga, I'm from East New York, Brooklyn. I'm not watching TV. I'm seeing it. I'm in Queens, New York right now. Jamaica Avenue is right there. Merrick Boulevard is right there. All I gotta do is take a bus and a train and I get to East New York, Brooklyn. I'm born in East New York, Brooklyn. Brookdale Hospital, Kings County. Used to live between Liberty and Glenmore. You're not telling me nothing. I don't know. I'm from the culture. Bred by the culture, built by the culture. I know the culture. Because I'm telling you what I'm seeing. It's not some shit I see on TikTok or YouTube. It's something I'm seeing in real life. But hold on. I'm straying from the topic, right? This brother in the comment section, even though I respect your opinions, but bruh, I'm 32 years old. I've been through East New York, Brooklyn, had beef out there, threw hands out there, all that. Jamaica Avenue, all that. I used to do all of that. So you can't tell me nothing. I've been in trap houses where I've seen educated college bitches run through there. I've sit up there and watch educated niggas deal with Pukishas and get his life fucked up. I've seen all that. I've been to Florida. I've been to PA. I've been all over America, all over Black America. So you can't really tell me that the ghetto culture has an influence. Are there black folks that are decent black people and they have broken it? Yes. But when you have people like Roland Martin, when you have people like D.L. Hughley, influential black folks championing and enforcing those things, then we have a problem. All right. So you're not getting what I'm saying. The culture influences people's minds to do things. And when you have the ghetto part of black culture influencing even the intelligent people. Look at your Democrat, look at how Kamala Harris tried to influence y'all with ghetto people. Look at the celebrities like a D.L. Hughley that was trying to influence y'all to vote. These are all people using ghetto, the lowest part of black culture, to influence you to doing something stupid. I don't know, bro. 90% of black men voted for Kamala Harris, and I think another 90% of black women voted for Kamala Harris. Only 20% of black men voted Republican, and 7% of black women voted. Let me look it up. I don't know, bro. Listen. Hold on. Lil Durk had niggas in the trap house. Lil Durk had the niggas smoking on Tuka. Yes. Ain't that what y'all blame Gen X hip hop for? Influencing drugs and shit? Ain't that what? Hey, hold on. When we want to hold black men accountable with hip hop, right? Then we want to acknowledge the influences. Ain't that what everybody blaming black men with hip hop for influencing niggas to go be gang members and go sell drugs and be in the trap house? Lil Durk had the world smoking on Tuka. That's influence. Lil Durk, a gangbanger. Influence. Hold on. Election. No, I'm not. You know what? I'm not gonna get distracted about it. I'm gonna go back to what I'm talking about. Man, you speaking in subjectivity, and that's how women speak. So I'm gonna go back to what I was looking at. The process of black disenfranchisement, like what niggas don't understand, is that some of us can break the programming, but you still got millions of us that are dumb enough to go follow the program. So I gotta let you know that it's a programming so you can break it. And out of all the black men that have come on YouTube before that have tried to break the programming, what? Right. So let me say what I was saying. You've seen black men of the black manosphere come out like an angry man, like a Tommy Sotomayor, like an Anton Daniels, and try to influence the culture to do something else. And look how much pushback they get from the culture. Look at all the black men on the Republican side. Let's try to influence the culture to do something positive. They get called coons, sellout, and Uncle Toms. So, anyway, the process of black disenfranchisement, this is called black disenfranchisement as a prologue to Jim Crow. The process of black disenfranchisement at the end of the war was important. It was war. I'm gonna get back on topic. I don't know what y'all talking about. A process of black disenfranchisement at the end of the war was important historical context for understanding the rise of Jim Crow. It's impossible to discuss this period without discussing the role of the Ku Klux Klan, which was Democrat, it's going to say, and other Democratic Party allied white supremacist terrorist organizations. The Democrats, Ku Klux Klan, who were Democrats, they were labeled as a white supremacist terrorist organization. This is part of the Democrats Party. This is why old Sleepy Joe got up there and did a eulogy at I think a grand wizard, some kind of grand wizard of some kind of Ku Klux Klan. A high Harry Potter wizard nigga that cast spells on nigga. When you cast a spell on a nigga, you turn dark skin or some shit. When you cast a spell on you, you go back to Africa. One of them KKK niggas. Joe Biden did a eulogy at that motherfucker's funeral. Right? You can read more about this in a lengthy and exhaustive history of American militias and pre-military organizations. And you want to get mad at the Black Panther Party? Even though Black Panthers, well, that's another story, but you had white militia groups terrorizing black folks. Why you can't have a black militia like the Black Panthers to protect themselves from the Ku Klux Klan? But then again, I would bet a lot of those alphabet groups were Democrats too. You know, terrorists with badges and federal authority. Right? In the first attempt to roll back the gains made by Black Americans, thanks to the Reconstruction Amendments, was a poll tax introduced by Georgia in 1877. Oh shit, we about to go into how the Democrats used legal ways to mess up Black folks' money. Let's look at it. The first attempt to roll back the gains made by Black Americans thanks to the Reconstruction Amendments was a poll tax introduced by Georgia in 1877. However, the legal rollback of voting rights in particular did not really ramp up until the turn of the century when Republicans ran on joint tickets with the Insurgent People's Party, also known as the Populist Party. This threat to entrench Democratic Party. Let me read that properly. This threat to entrench Democratic Party political power and all of the patronage that came with it, while certainly related to the racial question, was arguably a bigger motivator than race. In many cases, such as with poll taxes, there were explicit attempts to exclude white voters sympathetic to the Republican cause alongside Black voters. The specter of unity between poor Blacks and poor whites loomed large. Mississippi drafted a new constitution in 1860. Now, each state has their own constitution, right? Mississippi drafted a new constitution in 1890, which required the payment of poll tax as well as the passing of literacy tests as a qualification to vote. This passed constitutional muster in 1898 with Williams versus Mississippi. Other southern states quickly drafted new constitutions modeled on that of Mississippi. This was known as the Mississippi Plan. By 1908, every southern state had either drafted a new constitution or passed a suffrage amendment to better craft the state electorate to their likings. In 1903, Gibbs versus Harris threatened federal court support of such laws. So, what's that saying is that you had a lot of those Southern Democrats that were getting into federal power, because remember, the three branches of government, they were getting into federal power, and they were helping to pass, because first you have the state level that has their own constitution, and then you have the constitution that is federal, and that constitution that's at a countrywide or federal level, it goes for the land. Then you have the state constitution itself, right? So let's go back up here. So you have things like a poll tax. All right. Let's see what they have written for that. And they said that with that one, you have to be literate to vote, which most Black folks after Reconstruction era, like I said, a lot of Black men, they didn't have, because what happened during slavery, right, is that Black men worked the field, and then Black women had to learn how to read and to write because they were raising white children. They were raising white children during slavery. So a lot of Black men after slavery, during the Reconstruction era, they had trade skills. They know how to invent stuff and fix and build stuff, but they didn't have like education. And at the time, only men were allowed to go to vote. Right. So during that time, if the man was the head of your household and he was Republican, you were Republican. Right? Everybody in that man's house was a Republican. So the man went to go to the polls and vote. So that household was based upon that man and where he voted. And a lot of Black men, after slavery or during Reconstruction, they didn't know how to read or write. So you had to be literate. So that's why they put that rule in there, right? And that's racism subtly. It's subtle racism, because it doesn't outright blanket say, it can't outright say, black men you can't vote or Black people you can't vote. But it can say, you need poll literacy. You need to be literate. And if a certain group of people can't read or write, it's going to affect that group of people. All right. All right, so on here. right? So a lot of people modeled their constitution after Mississippi, right? Another method of maintaining control was with the white primary in 1923. Texas became the first state to establish primary voting for whites only. There you go. Primary voting for whites only. That's one right there. This is quickly deemed unconstitutional. So the state simply drafted a new law saying that the Democratic Party could determine its own voters for the primary. The state party quickly moved to exclude all non-white voters, which was entirely legal and constitutional because the Democratic Party was a private organization. Ooh. So black men, the Democrats, their party wasn't designed for you to vote for them. They excluded you from their party. They excluded you, right? Watch this. Let me tell y'all something. I don't care if you unsubscribe or you never like my channel again, but you gonna respect me. Feel me? I let us back and forth dude in here, back and forth with me about how, you know, it's not the whole culture and you don't understand culture influences or whatever. Bro. This is why you're direct never mind. Fuck it. I'm not going to that. Let me go into what I came here to do. Try to be distracted. This caught the eye of so now the Democratic Party, they never included you as one of their voters. They did something called a primary voting for whites only. Even though it was unconstitutional, their way around it was because the Democratic Party was a private organization. And they excluded all non-white voters. So the Democratic Party was never a house or home for black men. Let's continue. This caught the eye of some congressmen by the 1900s. There was a discussion. What's going on, brother? Respect the channel, like, share, subscribe, speak to the topic. Let's go. This caught the eye of some congressmen. By the 1900s, there was a discussion of stripping southern states of some of their congressional representation in accordance with provisions contained with the Reconstruction Amendments. Not only was the Solid South a large voting bloc due to the one-party nature of many southern elections, but they were also in charge of a goodly number of committee chairs, meaning that any attempt to strip southern states of seats was probably going to be precisely nowhere. Damn. That's how bad the Democrats didn't want niggas to vote. Reliable statistics from the era are few and far between, but historians believe that somewhere between 1% to 5% of eligible black voters were registered by the late 1930s. Very few of these actually voted in general elections, which are a foregone conclusion in many states. Prior to the first and second Great Migration, the black population ranged upwards of close to 50%. Ooh. See, I don't know. I haven't. I'd have to go study UK politics. Constitutional monarchy. I never heard of that term. Well, I'll tell you why I would prefer Republican Party. A, it's an anti-slave party, and B, the Republican Party is about like deregulation. Let me read it. Let me read the definition outright. Republican Party. I do know that monarchy is like almost like one person rules, right? Like a family is like the head of that Republican Party meeting. Nah, that sounds like too much like a dictatorship and shit. Nah. In America, because of our three branches of government, there's a checks and balances, and it's more, the power's more on the people. So the people get to pick their representation, right? As opposed to the royal family have absolute power now. Because now they can handpick the politicians, based on what you're saying, they can pick what politicians they want to give power to. It's not in the hands of the people. In America, it's in the hands of the people. We get to vote our representation, and our representation is supposed to get what we want done. Like with the past election, right? You had a red wave. So a lot of people voted Republican Party. So that means that the people are tired of the Democratic left, and they want, because most people voted for their wallet. Like in America, expensive groceries. Today, I went to go shop. I bought like a couple of items, spent like $50. So most people in America, on top of them being tired of the liberal leftism and all the woke crap and all the stuff that they're pushing on our kids in here, most people at the base level want to be able to buy groceries at the store and pay for gas and have their living expenses not be so expensive. Feel me? Even in New York City, even though it's a blue state, you had a lot of counties that voted red. See what I'm saying? So no, I don't like. No, I wouldn't go for constitutional monarchy. I prefer a Republican Party under capitalism, because over here, it's the people get to pick their representation and their the person that represents their interests. And then if that person doesn't do a good job, we can vote them out. You feel me? Okay. So now the Republican Party, okay. Oh, no, something right here. So initially united in 1854 by the promise to abolish slavery, the Republican Party has always stood for freedom, prosperity, and opportunity. All right. So let me go look for. Now watch this. Republicans believe. Well, that's why a lot of people voted for the Republican Party, because they are pushing a lot of that woke stuff onto our kids. So let me read this. Republicans believe in liberty, economic prosperity, preserving American values and traditions, and restoring the American gene for every citizen of this great nation. As a party, we support policies that seek to achieve those goals. Our platform is centered around stimulating economic growth for all Americans, protecting constitutionally guaranteed freedoms, ensuring the integrity of our elections, and maintaining our national security. We are working on preserving America's greatness for our children and grandchildren. I can vote for that. So now I don't want a constitutional monarchy. I want a Republican Party. No offense to the UK, but you know what I'm saying? A constitutional monarchy where the royal family has absolute power and they can pick what politician they give power to, and because it's not in the hands of the people at that moment. It's in the hands of one family. No disrespect to the UK. So let me read this. Reliable. In many states prior to the first and second Great Migration, the black population ranged upwards of close to 50%. 5 border states, Delaware, Maryland, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Maryland, all attempted to pass similar legislation to the Mississippi Plan, but failed to do so. Wow, that means the Democrats were entrenched in those southern states. Redeemer governments in the election of 1876. The average black person didn't know about the 1877 compromise. Yes. No disrespect to, and I'm going to go into how the LGBT community is a threat to black men too. We're going to go into that tonight. So stay tuned. The disenfranchisement of black Americans in the South was a political precursor for Jim Crow. In addition to legal disenfranchisement, there were also prior military actions against both black Americans and Republican voters and candidates. Damn. This is what the Democrats were doing to black folks. This is what I'm telling y'all. The Democratic Party is a threat, and they showed their ass for the past 4 years. They showed their ass and used our black women as a weapon against us, black men. But I need to go look up the percentage of y'all that voted for her. Let me do this. Let me do that. Percentage of. I wish I could do the screen share, but my PC, this is an old PC, so I have to read from the old PC and shit. So forgive me for that. Of black men that voted Democrat. Let me look at this. Democrat. Let me see if they have the image. Oh, here it is. Where are the... Okay, so black men voted for Kamala Harris at a 79%. Black women voted for 90%. Oh, that's the 2020. Hold on. No, we don't want them bitches is crazy. Let me see. Hold on. Give me a second. And I see black men on social media trying to tell appease to black women, telling them, well, we did vote for Kamala Harris. We did vote, man. You know what I'm saying? They'll let me know that black men are far from, or at least the generations that we're in with Gen X and the millennials, and maybe not with Gen Z or Gen Alpha, but between the boomer black men, Gen X black men, and the millennial black men, they let me know how, like, you starve for your woman's validation. Like, you cannot trust these black men in this. That's why that brother that was arguing with me in the chat earlier, for you to pick a black men from those three generations, especially the boomers, I might give Gen X a chance, because Gen X, a lot of the Gen X brothers, they speak a lot of, they came from that real time where they had to struggle and shit during Gen X. But to pick a black man from those three generations, whether it be boomers, Gen X, and millennials, to be a black person to lead something, no, because they're gonna lead based upon the validation of their women, like with the Nation of Islam. A lot of them niggas over there in the Nation of Islam, a lot of them are minded. Listen to how they talk. So no. Let's see. This is Pew Research, PEW Research Center, right? Black 83%, right? All black voters 70% leaning toward Biden. Let me see this. Men at a 75%, women at a 78%. See what I'm saying? So they'll let me know that black men, you still vote for your enemies, and it's based upon your women. Your women are telling y'all to vote for your enemies. And you know in the back of your mind, in the depths of your heart and your soul, that you're voting for the wrong thing. But a lot of y'all brothers are not masculine enough to say, nah, this is what we're going to vote. We're going to vote. But the thing is, with Malcolm X, right? Most of the black community didn't like Malcolm X at the time. They didn't like Dr. King either. They didn't like Dr. King. They didn't like Malcolm X. So those generations that came before us, they didn't fuck with especially Dr. King, because Malcolm X, because Malcolm X is preaching separation from white folks and preaching stepping up your game. So that also let me know that black folks at that time were stupid. They didn't like Dr. King. It was funny enough, you do your research, Dr. King was a communist. So was the Black Panther Party. They were socialists. That's what probably made them a target of the FBI, because during Dr. King's time, you had a whole capitalism versus communist thing. And because this is why a lot of the Black community has a lot of Marxist and communist ideologies here, equality shit here. It's because, no, that's another thing to go into. I might do a thing on that. But they didn't like Dr. King or Malcolm X either. You know what I'm saying? But I hear what you're saying, that this generation doesn't know Dr. King or Malcolm X. Which could be a good thing, because a lot of Malcolm X and Dr. King, a lot of them pandered to black women, which is probably what made a lot of the black men at their time simps, and allowed themselves to become subordinate to their women in their household and shit. Like if you watched Bill Cosby, if you watch Fresh Prince, if you watch Martin, you were probably a simp in your household. You let your woman disrespect you. But anyway, let me go back to this right over here. I want to go into the Democratic Party, and then I'm going to go into, I want to go into feminism, how white women and feminism is a big enemy, a threat to black men. The Southern governments are known collectively as the Redeemer governments. They ruled over most of the South from 1870 until 1910. As we discuss in our history of militias in the United States, the white pro-democratic party militias of the South were largely obsolete by the end of the 19th century. Democratic state governments were doing their job for them. All of this was facilitated by the Compromise of 1877, or the corrupt bargain of 1877, depending on one's point of view in exchange for certifying the Southern votes. Oh my God. My bad. So they're going to tell you this is going to tell you now what the 1877 Compromise did, and what the Republicans' sins that they committed, right? That's true. Well, I could say this about Malcolm X, right? Malcolm X did preach thinking for yourself, and, well, I would say this, the Nation of Islam, even though I have my critiques about them, I can still acknowledge that they did some good things, right? With the Nation of Islam, with the black Muslims, they're very pro-black. And they do teach you to think for yourself, educate yourself, and they do tell you to challenge a lot of things that's going on in your environment, especially when it comes to white supremacy. And then you have to give thanks to a lot of the Nation of Islam brothers, because they were going into these neighborhoods, into these communities, and saying something to the gangbanger and the thug, and trying to clean up the neighborhood. So you got to give respect to the Nation of Islam and the Black Panthers for that. Even though some of the things I disagree with, but they did put work into the community and tried to clean it up. So you got to give thanks to Malcolm X and all those people, right? Dr. King, he was more for integration with white folks. You know what I'm saying? But I don't want to go too much more into Dr. King, because I might upset people. Even though y'all didn't really fuck with Dr. King, nor did you fuck with Malcolm X. Like a lot of black community, like I was discussing earlier, they don't like Malcolm X would be a lame too, according to black culture standards. So would Dr. King. All the intelligent heroes that we've had that have fought and put their lives on the line, the black community would call them lame today. Even my man Rizla Islam, they would call him a lame. But whatever. So this is what the 1877 Compromise did, right? The Republicans, they removed federal troops from Florida, South Carolina, and Louisiana. The final states where they remained Hayes campaigned on doing this prior to the bargain. The appointment of one or more Southerners to Hayes' cabinet. This was fulfilled by appointing David M. Key from Tennessee as the Postmaster General. A transcontinental railroad passing through the South using the Texas and the Pacific line. Legislation to individualize the Southern economy, pulling hands off the South when it came to racial questions. So the North couldn't say anything to the South when it came to racism. The Republican Party, you gotta answer for this sin. You have to answer for this sin, the Republican Party. The first two are often emphasized, however, they are probably the least important parts of the compromise. As stated above, Hayes had already planned to withdraw the remaining troops from the South. The cabinet appointment of Postmaster General was certainly a bigger deal, when it would be today when far fewer people rely upon mail. The post has not even been a cabinet level position since the 1970s. The next two are arguably beneficial to everyone in the South, black or white. In any event, were never enacted. It's also worth noting that the compromise was seen as a way to avoid potential new wave of bloodshed. At the time, it was widely feared that American politics were going to go the way of Mexico, meaning military strongmen and state violence would resolve closely contested elections. In this context, the compromise is rather shrewd as Hayes gave up very little with regard to the first two provisions of never enacted points 3 and 4. So that means that Hayes did 1 and 2, but he didn't enact the other 3 deals. He didn't do those 3 deals. However, I would like to argue that even the removal of those federal troops was what caused the Democrats of those states to now harass black folks with uncontested. So even though Hayes was going to remove those troops in the beginning, still the Democrats were still going to be doing what they were doing anyway. It seemed like the Democrats were still going to be able to get in government, get into state, and because before this, they were talking about how they were restructuring the constitution, the state constitution, in these states and stuff. You see what I'm saying? So I don't know. That's crazy though. I still argue that if Hayes had kept those troops there, even though he was going to remove them, right? If he had kept those troops there, the Democrats wouldn't have the ability to now harass black folks or have other militia groups target black folks and stop them from voting Republican. That was what would be called election interference at that point. So the Democratic Party did a lot of election interference during those times. Sound familiar? Right? It's also worth noting that the compromise was seen as a way to so I guess what it's saying there is that they did the compromise on the Republicans' end. So they won't, because remember, they come from a civil war and shit. Abraham Lincoln, Civil War, so they don't want any more bloodshed. So I guess that was the compromise to stop it. But it did more harm than good. Because now it gave the Democrats power to, install racist codes against the black community during the Southern Belt, or on the Southern Belt. Right? The end of Reconstruction and the subsequent disenfranchisement of blacks and poor whites by Southern Democrats also did. So Southern Democrats were messing with their own white party, poor white people. That's crazy. State governments were not entirely without resistance. However, this resistance was met with a sharp and swift reprisal. For example, in November 1878, when the brother of a Republican candidate tried to collect affidavits from black voters that they were being prevented from voting, he was savagely beaten by cronies at the local Democratic Party leader. Cronies of the local Democratic Party leader. 4 days of rioting followed, including 13 blacks and at least 1 white dead and hundreds injured. This is the election interference by the Democratic Party then. The same month, a year in Wilmington, North Carolina, there was an orgy of violence and an effective coup d'etat against the duly elected fusionist government blacks represented by the Republicans and whites represented by the populace of the city. Here, the Democratic Party explicitly called themselves the white man's party. Damn! Ha! The white man's party, Democrats. I wish y'all was watching this dream. I hope you watched this dream. Forcing whites to join political and labor organizations. People were literally marched out of their homes in the middle of the night and forced to sign membership forms under threat of death. This is from the Democratic Party. They're harassing their own white people. Following a speech from former Democratic Party Congressman Alfred Moore Waddle, red shirts in attendance left the convention hall and began terrorizing black citizens. Wow. The eventual election was rife with fraud. The local black newspaper, the Daily Record, we had our own newspaper, niggas, and the Democrats destroyed all that shit. The Daily means we had our own media. The Daily Record was, along with many others around the state, burned to the ground. Waddle led a group to the Republican mayor of the town, forcing him and the entire city council to resign at gunpoint. The new city council was installed and elected Waddle as mayor. This is from the Democratic Party. This is why the Democrats today speak to you black men like you ain't shit. This is why Joe Biden can tell you you ain't black if you don't vote for me. This is what y'all was going to elect. This is what 70% of you black men was allowed your women to encourage y'all to go vote for. Could you imagine the economic base that the black community could have had in the South if the white man's party, the Democrats, wasn't messing with them? These are the sins of the Democratic Party, and you want me to go vote for that? Hell no. The organizer of the coup, Charles Ayuk, I'm not going to say that name, became the 5th governor of North Carolina as a Democrat. Other participants became the first female senator, Rebecca Felton, Secretary of the Navy, Joseph Daniels, and State Senator of the U.S. Congressman, John Bellamy. So they're giving you the names that I can go research. I put this article in the description so y'all could go look it up for yourself. Let me see if I can do it this way. So y'all could go look it up for yourselves. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go into feminism next.
Hate seeing ads? Here's how to get rid of them or get paid to see them. Do you know how much of the content you see on a daily basis are actually ads?
Shut up.
That's an ad. That's an ad. Yep, all ads. That's...
All right. Give me 1 second here. Let me do it like this. I'm going to go into feminism next. And I don't care what white women got to say. I don't care if you telling me you don't want to see a woman leading, or you must hate women, or you're misogynistic. No. You women are black men. How should I say this phrase? White women of the feminist party, you don't like and you hate black men. How about that one? I got to find a term for that. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 moment, people. I can post some of these things that I'm listening to in the chat from my PC. Trying to go to my life. Give me 1 second. This is also a gaming channel, where I game and stuff. I put stuff where I game, and then occasionally when so I'm gonna put this in the chat right here. Okay, so I'm gonna post this in the chat right there. Y'all can go look into that yourselves and read that. So, Jim Crow laws. So let's go to this. Jim Crow laws, for the most part, are relatively simple. Most states over 30, including those outside of the South, had laws against interracial marriage, a crime known as miscegenation. Now, I gotta look up that word. The remaining laws against this were overturned by the Supreme Court in 1967 in the Loving versus Virginia case. Some states went further than this, such as Florida, which banned both interracial dating and cohabitation. Damn. Schools, restaurants, and theaters, and cinemas, hotels, and train stations were commonly separated by law, but sometimes baseball teams and prisons were segregated by law, as in Georgia. Mississippi criminalized anti-Jim Crow propaganda. North Carolina banned the sharing of books between blacks and white schools. This is by the Democrats. So it's funny how the Democrats today, they're all for interracialism and all these different identities and LGBT marriage, but back then they was against interracial marriage. Let me read this again to you. Some states went further than this, such as Florida, which banned both interracial dating and cohabitation. Schools, restaurants, theaters, and cinemas, hotels, and train stations were commonly separated by law, but sometimes baseball teams and prisons were segregated by law. As in Georgia, Mississippi criminalized anti-Jim Crow propaganda, which means you couldn't be anti-Jim Crow. North Carolina banned the sharing of books between blacks and whites schools. That's crazy. So it's funny to me that today the Democrats are for interracialism when back then they weren't. So we're going to read this, and I'm going to move on to how feminism, right? How feminism is a threat to black men. The landmark Supreme Court case that upheld Jim Crow was Plessy versus Ferguson. The law in question was an 1890 Louisiana law requiring separate train cars for blacks and white passengers. Homer Plessy, a mixed-race Louisianian, an octoroon, 7/8 white and 1/8 black, and registered Republican as most Southern blacks were at the time, deliberately forced the issue as a test case. He bought a first-class ticket and boarded the white train car. The train company knew about this in advance. They opposed the law on the group grounds that it would require them to effectively double the number of train cars without corresponding the increase in passengers. The committee looking to challenge the law hired a private detective with arrest powers to ensure that Plessy would be arrested for violating the train car segregation law and not vagrancy or something else. Plessy and his bracket. So this is talking about a case. And he was testing the Jim Crow law, and he was like an octoroon. So he had some white in him, he had some black in him. So he's mixed. So I don't know what he was trying to do there. Maybe he was trying to use his white half to avoid the segregation law. So let's continue to read. Plessy and his backers lost every decision on the way up to the Supreme Court, which upheld earlier court rulings. This led to the doctrine of separate but equal. The legal theory was that the public accommodation must provide all citizens, but they could be separate, provided that they were equal quality. The argument among critics was that the separate facilities were never equal. This was a turning point in the history of American jurisprudence. The Supreme Court made Jim Crow the law of the land in any state that wished to do so. Woo! This is by the Democrats, people. Let me read that again. This was a turning point in the history of American jurisprudence. The Supreme Court made Jim Crow the law of the land, and in any state that wished to do so, it's important to reiterate what Jim Crow was and was not. Jim Crow was a state policy demanding segregation from private businesses. It was not a law allowing for businesses to discriminate if they wished to. In this respect, it was like a continuation of slave patrols of old, whereby private citizens were drafted into the militia to hunt for runaway slaves. That's crazy. As we can see above, the private businesses in question did not want to enforce the law, if only for purely economic reasons, but was forced to by the state Democrats party apparatus. This is about the Democrats. And y'all can read the article for yourself that I posted there. Right? But because of the time, I don't want to go out too long. But this is why the Democratic Party is a threat to black men. Because the early days, they're the one that passed Jim Crow laws. They're the one that wanted to pass laws and rules that were racist towards black folks and segregated you from the other population. They're the ones that were preventing you from voting and voter that you call voter what's the shit called again? I just said it. I forgot the word or the term, but you know what I'm talking about. The Democrats were the ones trying to fuck with the black vote and the Republican vote during those times. They were even messing with poor white people. And then forcing poor white people to come out and sign memberships, as I just read. So the Southern Democrats are the biggest threat, and were the biggest threat to not only black men, but to America. As what you, if you read this right here. Let me see this. A series of bills passed between 1957 and 1965 meant that segregation was all but over, except for the shouting. The first Civil Rights Act of 1957 was spirited to passage by future President Lyndon Baines Johnson. At the time, most powerful figure in the United States Senate, Truman tried to block it with the longest one-man filibuster in history, 24 hours and 18 minutes. The bill sought to secure voting rights and was largely ineffective. Okay. So that means that they was trying to fuck with the voter rights and all that other stuff. All right, so I put the article in the chat so y'all can go look it up for yourself. So now we're gonna go from this and move on to feminism. We're gonna start with Margaret Sanger. And I'm gonna post this into the chat too. All right, so let's go to Margaret Sanger. What a lot of you don't know, Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, it was originally called the Negro Project, right? And Margaret Sanger, her purpose was to wipe out black folks, to cull or depopulate our population. And she hid it under the disguise of, I'm going to put this in low-income areas. And she tried to frame it as, well, you know, poor people having babies or children, you know, it's not a good idea. So I'm saying, so now I'm going to set up Planned Parenthood to prevent poor people from having children. Or, you know, poor people who don't have the finances and the resources for birth control and these things, to prevent them from having babies. So now, in order to prevent them from having babies that they cannot afford, she was going to put Planned Parenthood in low-income, what you call, black places. You see what I'm saying? So that's what she hid her. So I'm going to read the article. That's what she hid her Planned Parenthood thing under, right? So I'm going to read it. The founder of Planned Parenthood introduced her Negro Project on this day, just a couple months before the beginning of World War II. In Germany, the eugenics program were almost 20 years old, and Adolf Hitler's third, I don't know how you say that, Reich, had already followed them to their logical conclusions. by deleting multiple thousands of the weak and helpless whose handicap disqualified them from the future in an Aryan utopia, envisioned by the Nazis, new efforts in the contraception in America, especially sterilization, would be promoted to discourage and perhaps eventually eliminate the defective and diseased elements of humanity. This is Margaret Sanger's Negro Project. Negro Project. Negro Project. Let me say that again, Negro Project. So this was towards blacks. In the United States, Margaret Sanger moved from promoting private means of birth control to avoid the consequences of promiscuity, of which she was an eager participant. Hold on. New efforts, I'm going to read that again. In the United States, Margaret Sanger moved from promoting private means of birth control to avoid the consequences of promiscuity, of which she was an eager participant, to setting up protocols to assist states to eliminating the descendogenic horror story of blacks who reproduce carelessly and disastrously. They called us reproducing carelessly and disastrously. So black folks reproducing to increase their population is carelessly and it's disastrously. Let me tell y'all something. I forgot what year from what year, but according from that year to now, 20 million black babies got aborted or deleted because of Planned Parenthood. That's genocidal. That's 20 million people, 20 million black folks that could have been lawyers, doctors, or an army, or all three for the black culture or for black community. That's not here because of Planned Parenthood, which you don't need Planned Parenthood. You just need traditional households to be enforced. The black community could have raised them kids, but whatever. But they looked at it as carelessly and disastrously. Let's keep reading. In order to make project more effective, she suggests that certain black ministers be recruited to support the birth control project. So they recruited a lot of niggas. Because I don't trust pastors, especially if you're liberal pastors. All pastors push this. All pastors promote Planned Parenthood and eugenics. When in your Bible it says be fruitful and multiply. Anyway, black ministers be recruited to support the birth control project since the most effective educational approach to the Negro is through a religious appeal. That's how they got that. Hey, that's how they get. This is how they got a lot of black folks to take the jab. This is how they get a lot of black folks to vote certain things. They use a lot of your religion, your religious leaders, your religion, and the religious leaders should know better to allow people to push political agendas upon the people. This is so black folks. Black men. I'm telling you, your enemies. The program's genocidal intentions were carefully camouflaged beneath several layers of coincidence, condescending, social service rhetoric, and organizational expertise. So, okay, this is going to go into how they masked, how Margaret Sanger was able to. Hold on, give me 1 second. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. So this is how Margaret Sanger was able to mask and disguise her true intentions, right? The most effective educational approach to the Negro is through a religious appeal. As historian George Grant has written, the program's genocidal intentions were carefully camouflaged beneath several layers of condescending social service rhetoric and organizational expertise. Expertise. Like the citizens of Hamelin, lured into captivity by the sweet serenades of the Pied Piper, all too many African Americans across the country happily fell into step behind what? All too many African Americans all across the country happily fell into step behind Margaret and the eugenic racists she had placed on her Negro Advisory Council. That's crazy. So we have to look at a lot of our ancestors that led the black community into bullshit. And this is why with the civil rights movement, a lot of the LGBT community was able to hijack that shit, which is why I'm looking at saying that the LGBT is an enemy or threat to black men too. Margaret Sanger opened her first birth control clinic in 1916 in a downtrodden part of New York City, where the inferior racists and the human weeds live. That's crazy. Immigrant Southern Europeans, Slavs, Latinos, and Jews so she's looking at, so she's saying that the inferior races and human weeds were the immigrant, like Southern Europeans, Slavs, the Latins, and the Jews. But you know what's so funny is that America allowed a lot of German people who came to America and was preaching a lot of this eugenics and socialist shit in our schools. That's funny to me, America. Probably by the Democrats. So when Joe Biden said in his 1994 crime bill that in his speech to condemn black men and to write a crime bill that we were going to be the predators or we were super predators, what Hillary Clinton said that we were super predators, and how Joe Biden basically said that black men are predators, basically, in his crime bill speech. What's the biggest threat to America today? Is it black American men or is it illegal immigrants that the Democrats let across the border? Because last time I checked in 2024, those Venezuelans were raping people in the city and taking over places in Ohio. So Joe Biden's prediction or his reasoning for why he wrote the crime bill did not come to pass. So the biggest threat to America is the Democrats because they let Joe Biden and Kamala Harris because they let them illegal immigrants into the country. I'm gonna do a video on that. All right? So let's go read it. We'll keep reading. With the support from many eugenics racists, her Negro Advisory Council established clinics all over the South, distributing contraceptives to the reckless and irresponsible swarming and spawning, disease elements of humanity. Remember, I just read a lot of the South had a lot of black folks on the Democratic policies. With the support of the hand-picked black ministers like your D.L. Hughley's today, like your pastors and ministers today that were riding for the Democratic team, right? So these plays are not new. These plays are not new. With the support of hand-picked black ministers and state public health officials, the slick propaganda literature of Planned Parenthood should have been called Banned Parenthood, moved along smoothly in its genocidal goals. Not satisfied with just community-based clinics, Planned Parenthood moved into public schools in the 1980s, primarily in the inner-city minority neighborhoods, but contraceptive offerings provided only one of the services promoted by Sanger. Sterilization of non-whites also lay at the center of Planned Parenthood's agenda. Several states established pilot programs for primarily minority victims. California's role began in 1909 and lasted for 70 years. At least 20,000 sterilizations in state institutions were performed during that time. Damn. This is why feminism and Margaret Sanger is a big weapon or enemy or threat to black men. Hold on, let me read this. Today, the abortion history has picked up where forced sterilization programs left off. Forced sterilization programs. But now with Supreme Court legal sanctions and sympathetic legislators across the nation, many government schools and clinics promote the Planned Parenthood agenda. And Congress, with significant bipartisan support, has included support for them in annual budgets. In 1917, photographs showing Margaret Sanger on the steps of Brooklyn, New York. Oh, so they have a picture showing her in Brooklyn. I see a lot of white male faces in here. No, not white men, but a lot of white women feminists in here. Oh, there's a couple white dudes in here. Look at their faces. I'm telling you, black men, if you're listening, white women that preach liberalism and feminism, you shouldn't be dating those women. Don't date them. Don't give them dick. Nothing. Don't give them Johnson anything. Don't even have a conversation with them. They're your biggest enemy in America, and you saw it during the election. You've seen it. All right, the calling black men stupid and insulting black men and all the other shit that went on during this election from the Democrats, from feminism. No black woman or white women or any women that's preaching feminism or liberalism you should be dating. You should not be dating them. You should not be in relationships with them because they're going to preach the enemy. They're going to preach your enemy's influence to you. You know what I'm saying? It's like when God walked into the garden after Adam and Eve bit the apple, and God was instantly able to tell that they was under somebody else's influence. That's why God asked him, who told you to eat the apple? That's how he's able to recognize that you still something was wrong based upon how they move. That's the same thing I feel with black women every time I hear them talk and open their mouth. They don't talk like they come from my influence or from a pro-black influence. They talk like they come from white supremacist influence. They talk like they come from feminism influence. They talk like they come from an influence that's an enemy to me. So, all right, so let's go into we're gonna go into let me see. I have so many tabs here open because I was looking at the history of a lot of this. We'll post this into the chat too. Jalen, I understand what you're saying, but you already have 70% of black men in the household or involved with the child's life. So you have fathers being fathers and teaching them what's right from wrong already. You have that going on. The thing is with the fathers now, if the culture is not reflecting, so now I could teach as a father, I could teach my child something, but now they have to go into the world and then I have to weigh my teachings against the influence of the culture. And the influence of the culture have a larger influence. You feel me? So I get what you're saying. Well, hold on. These young people do understand me. The election speaks for itself. It was a red wave. Most of the states voted red. So the younger folks do understand what I'm saying. They do get it. You see what I'm saying? And two, we have to learn to get our people to step their game up and educate themselves so they can speak on this level. We can't keep downplaying how we talk to speak to their level. You know what I'm saying? They got to learn how to educate themselves or research what I'm saying so they can communicate how I communicate. That's the problem in the black culture. Like, we try to go down to other people's level instead of raising them up to our level to make them more intelligent. See what I'm saying? So let me go to the women's suffrage group. Let's see here. Where should I start? All right, so we're going to start here. I'm not going to read this whole thing. I posted this in the live chat, so y'all can go look these things up yourself. Okay, so in 1861, the outbreak of the Civil War, the movement for women's suffrage decided to put its work on hold. You notice that a lot of these things happened during the 1860s and 1877, the 1800s, like after slavery ended. That's crazy. White suffragists such as Elizabeth Cady Stanton believed that once the Union won the war, and enslaved people in the South were granted the right to vote, women would also be rewarded for their war efforts with this full suffrage. After the war, however, the Republican Party saw that if they granted women the right to vote, it might mean white women in the South who were nearly all Democrats. Holy shit! I'm gonna read that again. This is from the Washington Post. After the war, the Republican Party saw that if they granted women the right to vote, it might mean white women in the South who were nearly all Democrats might outweigh. Ain't it funny that a lot of the Democrats were racist towards black men? This is why feminism and the women's suffrage group are all threats to the black man. This is why black men. This is why in the past, before Donald Trump, that it was difficult for you to gain employment in corporate America or in a lot of jobs. Yeah, mainly corporate America, because a lot of the white women, because this is what they were doing. Even though the affirmative action says that you have to interview minorities and hire minorities or whatever, because women are a minority group, even though they outnumber us, which is funny, they're not really minority, but because they're women and they're considered to be the weaker sex or minority group, these jobs, they would get tax breaks for hiring both white women and black women. And a lot of these jobs, they would just hire black women because she's black and she's a minority, and they would just hire white women. So black men, you were competing with your black women and your white women, and they were going to hire women in a corporate America over you black men. Why is that? To prevent black men from getting any kind of monetary power or patriarchal power in their household. Because money is power. I don't care what nobody says. Money, with money, you could buy land, and you could buy land, you could buy you could buy land. You could purchase land with money. You could fund certain projects in your community with money. You could do a lot of things with money. Right? So now they just hire black women and hire white women, you know what I'm saying? And they get their tax breaks. They don't need to hire black men for certain things. They just hire a woman before you and hire white women before you. See what I'm saying? So this is why a lot of black men, you could not find work, because they would just hire white women before they hire you. They'll interview you to reach their quota, but they just hire 10 white women before they hire one black dude. And they'll hire 5 black women before they hire one black dude. You know what I mean? So let's keep reading, all right? After the war, however, the Republican Party saw that if they granted women the right to vote, it might mean that white women in the South, who were nearly all Democrats, might outweigh the new political party of the freed black male voter there, who would mostly vote Republican, which was the party of Abraham Lincoln. So it was a calculated decision not to include women in the text of the 15th Amendment, which read, "The rights of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude." So it doesn't put gender in there, it just put race and color. I remember back then, if the women's vote or the women, their political affiliation was according to their men. So if I was a Republican back then and I had a wife, she was Republican too. See what I'm saying? So if I voted Republican, she gonna vote. She's a Republican by default because she's under my house, right? That's how that was. The reaction of white suffragists like Stanton and Susan B. Anthony was severe and outwardly racist. They thought it was an outrage that newly freed, uneducated black men should be able to vote before middle-class, educated white men such as themselves. Such as white women such as themselves. Let me read that again. They thought, this is from Susan B. Anthony and Stanton, they thought it was an outrage that newly freed, uneducated black men should be able to vote before middle-class, educated white women such as themselves. Right? This is again why a lot of y'all black men were not able to get hired in your corporate American positions. A lot of white women was on that type of time. This is why a lot of those white women you see on TikTok, on YouTube, speak down to black folks or down to black men, because they speak from this position. For black suffragists, though, The choice was clear. Frances Ellen Watkins Harper said, when it was in question of race, I let the lesser question of the sex go. But the white women all go for sex, let the race occupy a minor position. So that means that the black female suffragists, they were loyal to their black race at the time, right? Because they were loyal to their black men at that time. But white women, they let go, women all go for sex, so they all go for their own gender, and they let race occupy a minor position. So that's what that was, right? Now, I don't understand why Frederick Douglass, a black man, would sit up there and be part of a women's right movement instead of you be for a black male's rights movement, bro. So y'all got to put a lot of your black American ancestors or leaders dudes who fought for causes that weren't for men's rights, for black men's rights. They fought for white women's rights over there, even though black women were there. But let's continue to go into it. For Frederick Douglass, a member of the women's rights movement since its beginning of the Seneca Fall Convention, it was inconceivable that black men should be denied the right to vote until white women could have it too. Oh, shit. It was inconceivable that black men should be denied the right to vote until white women could have it too. Anthony said to Douglass, if you will not give the whole loaf of justice to the entire people, it should be given to the most intelligent and capable portion of the women first. She meant educated white women such as herself. She also referred to black men using racial slur to viciously drive home her point. Bruh. You know how when black women get up on YouTube and they say, well, you shouldn't be dating that Becky or that white woman because white women want to enslave you too, and white women enslaved you too, and white women are racist towards you too. When black women are speaking, they're not talking about when you were in shackles and chains. They're not talking about when you were picking cotton. They're talking about when black women are going into these meetings with these white feminists and hearing how these white women speak about you behind closed doors. That's what these black women are talking about. When they're saying that white women are racist towards you and they want to enslave you too. This is what they mean in this paragraph. And I'm going to read the paragraph to y'all again. Anthony said to Douglass, if you will not give the whole loaf of justice to the entire people, it should be given to the most intelligent and capable portion of women first. She meant educated white women, such as herself. She also referred to black men using a racial slur to viciously drive home her point. This is why feminism is the biggest weapon, or has been the biggest weapon or threat towards black men. All right, so the fact that you have Frederick Douglass up there, a white dude up there, a motherfucking on a feminist movement, white women's platform, who they're telling them you're not smart enough or educated enough to get this vote before us. Whatever. Black female suffrage. This is talking about when the women's movement split, right? Black female suffragists and Douglass, who had once enjoyed the friendship and camaraderie of white suffragists such as Stanton and Anthony, felt betrayed when the white suffragists opposed the passage of the 15th Amendment. 100 years ago, the Congresswomen broke barriers, but their legacy is cautionary tale for today. But in the 1870s, black men in the South began to vote and hold office rights that would soon be stripped away by new laws. The divide in the suffrage movement was complete. Stanton and Anthony and others formed the National Women's Suffrage Association in 1869. Shortly after the 15th Amendment passed in Congress, their goal was to pass another constitutional amendment, one that would enfranchise women across the whole country. But Douglass Harper, Sojourner Truth-Hand, and Lucy Stone formed the American Women's Suffrage Association that same year. Their plan was to win women the right to vote state by state because the Constitution grants states the power to control voting rights. A few Western states granted women the right to vote, hoping to attract more women to their spur state. So it's like they're fighting over the control of the women. Because again, women, which is why I said I don't know how women are minority class when they outnumber us. You see what I'm saying? So it's like they're fighting over the women's vote. Because they know if their numbers can increase and they could get the women to vote for certain things, they could get certain laws passed. Which is what you saw today with you saw in our time in 2024 with the Democratic Party, right? Kamala Harris thought that if she pushed certain abortion rights and certain pattern to the women, basically, that they would get the women's vote, more women's vote. But sure enough, that was proven wrong, right? Um, but in the East and the South, there was still a lot of more work to be done to challenge attitudes in politics. Most people at the time still thought the idea of women voting was absurd. In 1890, the divided women's movement finally decided to converge as the National American Women's Suffrage Association. It was mostly dominated by middle and upper class white women who were not interested in fighting to defend the rights of newly enfranchised black men of the South. Black men, these white women were not interested in fighting for your rights. They were not. And the fact that you got black women who choosing feminism over your black man, knowing that white women were not trying to fight for our rights. This is why the women on the Democratic left speak the way they talk towards you, black men. I'm telling you, any white woman or black woman or any woman that's speaking feminism, I'm gonna look at you as a threat towards me because you're speaking my enemy's language. By the end of the 19th century, many black female suffragists were forming their own clubs and organizations. Nanny Helen Burroughs and Mary Church Darrow helped establish the National Association of Colored Women in 1996. National and local groups of black women saw the importance of suffrage to protecting the entire black community. Although not much progress had been made toward the National Constitutional Amendment, extending the right to vote to women, groups like these laid the groundwork for the victories to come. All right, so that's the women's suffrage group. This is how white feminism. So if you remember those talk shows back in those talk shows, like the Phil Donahue's and the Ricky Lakes and all those various talk shows back in the 80s and 90s, where they had black men up there and black women looking into feminism and talking trash about. And then you remember how you look into the crowd and you see white women encouraging black women to be feminism. That was white women sticking their nose into black folks' business, encouraging our women to rebel against black men. This is the women's suffrage group is where that comes from. You know what I'm saying? And then they encourage our women to rebel against our house. So that's white women minding our business, minding black folks' business instead of minding their own business. And that's another reason why black men need to look at feminism and these leftist liberal groups as threats towards you and your progression here in America. This is probably what's been the biggest monkey wrench towards black men's progress in your communities. Because one, they preached on women a lot of leftist liberalism and communist ideas. And then these women educate our children with these things. They educate the future generation with these things. This is why there's that saying that says that when you educate a man, you educate an individual. But when you educate a woman, you educate the nation, right? Because the women, they traditionally raise children. They raise the next generation of children, right? Now, this is the thing I have when they say when you educate a man, you educate an individual. Because when you teach a man to fish, he's going to teach his village. So when you educate a man, he'll educate his village or he'll educate his nation. And that's the problem I have with that quote that Malcolm X likes to quote, or they like to quote from Malcolm X, that when you teach a man, you teach an individual, but when you teach a woman, you teach a nation, is because it's not properly broken down. Then it takes away what the man's responsibility is, and it prompts the women to be above the man. Like if you sidestep the man and you teach the women, you teach the nation. But really and truly, when you teach the man, the individual, he's going to teach his women and his nation and his children. Right? Because that's how that works. My household, as a man, I define how my household is going to be ran. My woman is going to teach my children or the next generation based upon what I taught my woman. So because black women chose to be educated by feminism and leftist principles, and they removed the black man's influence from the house, black women taught from a Marxist, socialist, communistic, feministic viewpoint. And this is why you see a lot of weak black men today when it comes to millennials, the Gen Z, and the Gen Alpha, because they were educated by black women that were not taught by black men's influence or conservative traditional influence. They were being taught by a democratic leftist influence. and those Democrats leftist influence, they were trying to tear the black woman away from black men's influence. Which is why I'm saying the liberals and the Democrats and the left and all those LGBT alphabet communities is an enemy towards black men because they taught your women to go against you and to corrupt your children. And if they got elected to this year with Kamala Harris, that 20 million black children that got deleted over a course of time, that number would have been increased. And the black community would have been downsized to a mere atom or molecule. Because regardless of how many good black men are in the community, black women are still going to choose wrong. Because their mothers taught them wrong. And we got to look at the bloomer black men that taught black men to be subordinate to black women and to allow black women to disrespect them. This is the cause of that. But whatever. So that's the women's suffrage group. This is the early feminism. And the article I just read showed you how white women of those times did not like black men. They didn't give a fuck about your fight. And those same women's suffrage people, I see them today. I see them speak today. That's how I'm able to recognize certain people, how they talk and how they speak, because I researched the articles. I researched what was said. And then I hear the same things being said today amongst their people. This is why you need to, black folks need to research history and stuff, so you can know who your enemies are. All right. Let me read something from, I think, Candace Owens. I don't agree with everything Candace Owens says, but something she said is correct. A lot of people don't like Candace Owens. So I'm going to post something from Candace Owens. Let me look at the chat. Yes, Sean Stephenson, that's why black children don't have fathers in the house. All right? Is because of, well, to answer Sean's question, right? Because of the Democratic left and all of these leftist groups' influence on black women still made a choice to go follow those influences. So they walked away from black male leadership to go follow the leadership of black men's enemies. Exactly, Sean. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. If you kept the father. See, this is why I'm saying that the Democrats are the biggest threat, or the biggest enemy or threat towards black men and his household. Because, money, when you say there's no father in the household, that means there's no patriarchy in the household. So the Democrats won patriarchy, influence, came into black men's house and dirty macked on black men and influenced black women to go follow her. And black women of their own choices chose to go follow another man's household. Now, during that time, you still have black men that had their own communities. Right. That's what the Democratic Party should have did. They should have gave incentives. They said, okay, we're going to make up for Jim Crow, and we're going to incentivize for black men to live to a black man, or black women to get a black man to be in a household. Let me see what you said. Yeah, but John, you've had plenty of strong father figures, right? See, what we need to dissect when it comes to women I don't want to make this about women here, but little gem, right? Um, you can be a strong person all you want, but if that woman is not attracted to you, they ain't gonna follow you. You know what I'm saying? And so, even though I agree with you that there has to be a strong father in the household, again, these people, they got to go out into a world with other influences that are strong, just as strong as your father's influence or stronger. And at the end of the day, you have to choose. Either you're going to follow your father's house or you're going to follow the devil's house. Remember, the Bible says that. The Bible talks about, remember, God does not force you to follow his influence. He gives you a free will choice to follow it. Right? God does not force his leadership. And we learned that lesson with Adam and Eve. Remember, Adam and Eve, they knew who God was. They knew what God was. They had a conversation with God. Yet, Eve still chose to disobey God's instruction and go follow the influence of the serpent. So it's all boiled down to free will. See what I'm saying? Um, what do you mean because he was from a poor family? He was from a poor family. Um, hold on. So let me read something from Candace Owens right quick, right? This is an article from Candace Owens. According to Candace Owens, feminism as a social movement has historically been at odds with the liberation of Black Americans. She warns that feminism continues to hurt Black population today, specifically in the area of suffrage, independence, and abortion. Keep reading to understand how these policies, attitudes, and attitudes devastate, especially Black Americans. Let me read that properly. Keep reading to understand how these policies and attitudes devastate, especially Black Americans. According to Candace Owens, feminism became an enemy of Black Americans during the suffrage struggles over 100 years ago. Owens believes that because white men have historically held more power than women and blacks, there has always been an inherent rivalry between feminists and Black activists. Suffragettes were angry that Black men were granted the right to vote before women were. And Black women were angry with white women because they were essentially asking for both members of the household to have voting rights before even one member of a Black household did. Short form note. Women were granted the federal right to vote with the passage of the 19th Amendment in 1920. However, this did not eliminate state laws that prevented Black women from voting. Poll taxes and literacy tests kept many Black women out of the toll booths until after Jim Crow laws were dissolved. This is another reason why many Black people felt at odds with the feminists. The spoils were not distributed equally. Hear that, spoils. All right, so that's an article, and I believe I posted this in the chat. What do you mean? There's absolutely no reason for a single Black mother to bring a man into the house. They will lose lots of money. Oh, you referring to the welfare state, Sean? Holy shit. That was this year? In North Carolina, the very last Jim Crow law that was on the books in the country was finally overturned. It was the pistol purchase permits. So who couldn't purchase the pistol permits? Was that Black folks? You gotta remember, a lot of those anti-gun laws was passed to stop black men from protecting themselves and fighting off white people. And North Carolina is one of those democratic states. And it's funny how that what you call Donald Trump got elected, and he said that also a local sheriff decided that. That's crazy. Donald Trump said something about if you have a license for a concealed permit, that statewide, that no state, that every state, so including like New York, right? New York has very strict gun laws, right? So if you have a license or permit for your concealed carry, they can't deny you from having a self-defense weapon out here in New York, which is cool. The only problem with the New York State now, there has to be proper self-defense laws in New York State. You feel me? Where the citizens can now defend themselves against certain things, elements like gangs and illegal immigrants and the such. You know what I'm saying? But that's crazy. And that's a democratic state. That is a democratic state. That is a democratic state right there. Let me see this. Um, Let me. You know what? I'm gonna read something else. Um, I'm gonna go into how the LGBT is a threat to black male population, because the LGBT community, they hijack a lot of the movements that black men fought for. White people that used to own plantations and they were being replaced by conservatives. Oh shit. This is 2024. North Carolina still acting like they. Damn, that's insane. That's insane. Um, that's insane to me. But let me read this article. This is how this article is talking about how the LGBT hijacked the civil rights movement. So let's go into it. They're talking about a case right here, right? The case of a white baker in Colorado who refused to make a wedding cake for a gay couple is headed to the Supreme Court, and it has reignited a passionate debate. Are the people now fighting for LGBTQ rights, following in the footsteps of the 60s civil rights movement, or are they hijacking it? They're hijacking it, says a group of conservative African Americans that includes a civil rights pioneer from North Carolina. Shit, we talk about a similar state, the same state. They say they are offended at the comparison between what black people went through then and what LGBTQ people are going through now. And they say they believe that black people have been discriminated against because of their skin color, because of who they are. While gay and lesbian and transgender people want protection for a lifestyle and sexual behavior they have chosen for themselves. Now, let's break that down, right? I made that argument years back when I was arguing with black folks talking about how LGBT has the same struggles as ours. And I was talking to a black dude that was part of that community, rainbow community. And I told him, I said, bro, the black community, your ancestors during Jim Crow, they were getting done bad, not because of their sexual choice or preference. They were getting done bad because of their skin color, because of who they are. Black men were getting terrorized not because of their sexual preference or because they want to be, or their lifestyle choices. They were getting terrorized for being black men. That's the fundamental difference between the LGBTQ and the civil rights movement. And I told him, yo, you cannot have these people hijacking our struggle when this struggle was for the freedom and the right for black Americans specifically. And nobody listened. And now look what we have in our community. The LGBTQ has used the civil rights platform and various, like the conscious community with this whole woke shit, they hijacked the conscious community. The conscious community was very black man and black masculine centric. Black radical ideas, Black Panther, Malcolm X's, a lot of black leaders that talked about liberation and freedom. Wokeness is the feminist version that hijacked your conscious movement. See what I'm saying? And they use your conscious movement and your civil rights movement as a way to vehicle in and usher in a lot of these identity politics and these pronoun people. They use your black. That's what I'm saying. That those people over there on the left with the LGBTQ, they're the enemies to y'all black men. Serious business, and you need to take them seriously and speak up against it. I shouldn't be the only nigga in the wilderness tapping you on your shoulder and waking you up to it. Mm. So I say you saying to take so okay, so well to Sean, you gotta understand that the Irish and Scottish people, they were treated like black folks too. Like remember the Irish, if you look up the history, the Irish they were enslaved for 1,000 years. So it's like the Irish are like the Mexicans amongst Latin folks. Like they're I think they're considered like the Slavs or something like that. But the Irish people, they like most high class Europeans, like the Brits, like they the whole war between the Brits and the Irish, the IRA or whatever, and then you have other Europeans that they didn't like Italians either at first. They didn't like Italians, they didn't like Irish, they didn't like a lot of those European groups. They didn't like the Jews, they didn't like a lot of people. Um, Damn, it take 90 days to get your permit approved, but in surrounding suburbs, it only takes less than 21 days. That's crazy. That's in Detroit. Man. Well, I'm glad Donald Trump is in office and he can break a lot of those Democratic bullshit rules. They're hijacking it, says a group. So I'm going to read this now. They're hijacking it, says a group of conservative African Americans that includes a civil rights pioneer from North Carolina. They say they're offended at the comparison between what black people. Oh, so I read that for themselves. Oh, yeah, I read that already. That group included some clergy and members of black organizations such as Frederick Douglass Foundation is publicly supporting Jack Phillips, the baker. It has even launched a campaign, "We Got Your Back, Jack," to make its case before December 5th when the High Court plans to hear arguments in Masterpiece Cake Shop versus Colorado Civil Rights Commission. One of the campaign images shows 3 separate water fountains labeled white, colored, and LGBT. The first 2 are in stark black and white, recalling the racial segregation that was once the law in southern states. The last is rainbow colored. The headline says, "One of these never happened," which is true. There was never an anti-LGBT during from 1877 to the 1960s, which was the Jim Crow. It was all anti-black, anti-black man, black water fountain, white fountain, colored fountain. There was never the KKK didn't burn down or terrorize black men's community because of their sexual choice or preferences. They didn't have segregation laws to segregate gay folks from straight folks. It was segregation laws from black folks from white folks. That's what that was. When a black man, there was laws that if a black man whistled, a straight black man whistled at a white woman, he was going to go to jail for that, or he was going to get hung and beaten for that. There was never a law that said if an LGBT person at a straight male, that they was going to get hung or beaten for that. But that happened with black men. Second, you can visibly see me that I'm a black person, so-called black person. You can see my race. You can see what I look like. You can't see my sexual preferences. So even if back then the KKK, they were against homosexuality, they were against LGBT, and there were witch hunts for them, how would you know? Unless somebody came out and told you that's what their preference was. But you can hide your sexual preferences. You can't hide your race. You cannot hide who you are. You cannot hide your phenotype. You cannot hide your genetics. But you can hide your sexual preference and your lifestyle. That's what they call them down low people, or people on the down low, right? Among conservatives groups, leaders, High Point Clarence Henderson, one of the black students who helped propel the civil rights movement in 1960, by sitting down at a Woolworth's lunch counter in Greensboro, Howe now leads the North Carolina chapter of Frederick Douglass. Oh, I'm not going to read all that. He said that, this is his quote, "There's no comparison between struggles of African Americans and the LGBT person," said Henderson. "There's a difference between what a human being is and what a human being does. I lived this, walking down the street being called all kinds of names because of the color of my skin. How many gays and lesbians were lynched?" That's a good damn question. You had those KKK groups, those militia groups, hanging black men and then eating their skin after they burnt them and hanged them, and then would cut their Johnson off and put it in a jar and take it home as a trophy. That's what black men went through. So how dare these LGBT people compare their shit to our shit? And then want to use our fight and our platform to push their agenda. No. And black men, y'all need to speak the fuck up and say, hey, no. Slam your head on the table and say, no, this cannot keep going. And not care whoever issue it. Don't care about what your black women say. Fuck what your black women say. It's what you say. And she's supposed to fall in line. If she can't fall in line, tell her to get back out the line. All right. All right, so let's read this. So you had African American leaders supporting the gay couples. Now, what is not known is that you had a lot of LGBT people that were black or African American that was part of the civil rights movement too, which is probably the reason why it got hijacked. So that's just my opinion and my theory based upon some of the stuff I researched. But it's going to go into an African American couple that's defending the gay couple right now. So he said, this person said, or this African American leader said, discrimination is discrimination no matter who the group of people is facing it, said Gannon, who won national headlines in 1963. When he became the first African American student to enroll at Clemson after suing to end its whites only policy, every time I hear the arguments such as this, I recall the arguments when we were pressing for rights in the 1960s. We heard the time is not right, and we can have separate but equal. So this is the quote that he said, right? Now I can beat that argument. I could say, well, we're suing to end whites only policy, right? Because guess what? White only people policy, it didn't stop white gay people from drinking at the water fountain. Black only fountains didn't stop black gay people from drinking at the water fountain. And we get it that discrimination is discrimination no matter who the group of people is facing it. But guess what? Black folks had to get their own movement to support themselves against discrimination. So guess what the LGBT people need to do? Get their own movement to support themselves against whatever discrimination that they're going through. Remember, black men, you have to fight for your own organizations and your own freedoms that benefit yourself. Stop allowing other people to benefit from your stuff. See what y'all saying in the chat. All right, thank you, Sean. Shout out to everybody that came in and y'all viewed and y'all subscribed and y'all liked and y'all shared. I'm just bringing this to a lot of y'all attention as black men. So, you can now wake up and fight for your communities back and stop allowing people to push you around and tell you what to do, especially from the left. Now, I'm not going to read all of this. I'm going to post it, and I wish I was able to share the screen, but I can't. We'll post all of this in the chat for y'all to go read it yourselves. In final conclusion, this is why the left, the liberals, the Democrats are a big threat to black men in America, but with black men in general, whether you're from the diaspora, because even in the Caribbean, like places like Jamaica, they're pushing a lot of those leftist principles or ideas onto them over there. And we already know that Jamaica, because a lot of Caribbean households in Jamaica, they're very conservative, right? So now, you pushing LGBT stuff, and you even see them dance all reggae now too. You see it in the music too, but they're pushing a lot of those leftist principles and ideas onto Caribbean culture and shit. So, black men, have to get very wary of who these people are and why they, telling you what to do and how to do it and why they trying to hijack your stuff. I tell you why they're trying to hijack your stuff. Because a lot of your movements were fought by black men or black patriarchal movements. And a lot of the left, like what you saw with the presidential election, the Democrats, they're more matriarchal minded. You see what I'm saying? Or it would appear that they're more matriarchal minded, right? So because they're more matriarchal minded and their main objective is to dethrone the white man and his patriarchy, they're trying to kill two birds with one stone by dethroning the black man and his patriarchy. So all these leftist things that has been imprinted onto the black community, onto many black women, and black women infatuating their households with it, and because black men were not wary of these things have taught the millennials, the Gen Alphas, and the Gen Zs these bad ideologies. That even if you're a black father, you're a strong black father, you try to teach them what's right, they still got to run into, first they got to run into black culture, then they got to run into leftist ideas and principles, then they got to run into a whole host of bullshit. You know what I'm saying? And what the left are advertising is well, it's not appealing to me, but apparently to the objective collective group, it's appealing to them. And, black men, you got to be aware of your enemies from 2024 and now and continuing. You got to stand up to your, like, I shouldn't be telling y'all to stand up to your black woman, bro. If she ain't saying, if she not saying what you saying, she can't be around you. They need to operate from that code. And it's like when I see that percentage of 75% of black men voting for Kamala based upon your fear of losing your black women that support deleting your babies, black women that tell you they hate you every day on social media, black women that have proven to be ineffective, don't want to support you. They don't even want to do 50-50 with you. They don't want to grind with you in the paint. Black women that try to when you try to date a black woman, they try to run a game on you. All they gotta offer you is box that's been used by everybody else. Call you bullet bags, shame you, call you all kind of names on social media, embarrass you, emasculate you. Why would you listen to that group of people? And I give thanks to the 20% of black men that voted and stood up. And I give thanks to the 7% of black women that stood up and voted for conservatism. I give thanks to those people. You know what I'm saying? And hopefully, all those black women that are talking about 4B movement and you're going to leave the country, please leave. Do a mass exodus of the black culture. Leave. That way, the good black men and the good black women can find each other. So now I don't have to go through and play a big ass numbers game, and have to swim through a sea of bullshit women after bullshit women. Please leave. Please leave. Take away your murder box vagina away from me, please. Because you're not threatening me, because you're not bringing me any value with your murder box or your murder vagina. You see what I'm saying? A lot of you liberal black women, you don't treat black women black. That's probably why y'all failed. You don't treat your black men with respect. You don't love your black men. You threaten to delete his children. You take him through his enemies. You take him to that white man court and enforce his enemies' laws and principles and rules against him. Call the police on him. You weaponize his children against him. This is all from democratic liberal black women. So be glad that you're going to take your box and go to another country. Thank God. Leave. Purge yourself from the black community. That way the black community can grow and be prosperous. And when the black culture grows to be prosperous, black men and black women, you cannot allow the serpent to keep coming in your garden and influencing you to do bad. That's why I don't disagree with gatekeeping to an extent. Certain shit got to be kept. Certain shit cannot be allowed in black culture. I'm saying in order for us to get a credible black man in the presidency, one, he got to be born in America. B, the black culture that we have right now needs to be destroyed and rebuilt. And all the stupid motherfuckers need to go somewhere else for that to happen. But in anyway, I thank you guys for the viewership. I thank you for the likes and the subscribes. This is not only a channel where I speak like this. I also do gaming. I also do, this channel is an in general channel where I post a lot of what I do, a lot of the things I'm into. And a lot of times when I hear topics like this, I speak on it. Hopefully I can get a better PC so I can share the screen of what I read. But, I'm dealing with what I'm dealing with right now. But anyway, this is Kid Shorty Gaming Nation. Like, share, subscribe, and support the channel. You guys have a good one.